What is an empath? Let me tell you. I'm Carla McLaren, and I wrote the book, The Art of Empathy, A Complete Guide to Life's Most Essential Skill. I may be, and I'm going to have to check this out, but the research I've done, I think I am. I may be the proto-empath. I may be the person who brought the term empath into the international stage with my book in 1997, where I identified myself as an empath. At that time, I thought it was a form of psychic ability. I now understand that it's absolutely not, but I also understand why I thought it was. The idea at the time was that an empath was the lowest possible form of psychic. So the highest form, was the supposed clairvoyance who could see the future, and the middle form was the clairaudience. Oh, clairvoyance means clear sight. Clairaudience, who could hear things or hear voices. Clear hearing. And then clairsentience, clear feeling, clear sensing, they were empaths. And clairsentience were just like very, very low, because what they understood was the lowly emotions, right? And the lowly physical world and the lowly body. And so I grew up being an incredibly intense and sensitive little girl. And when I was little, it was called hyperactive, it was called problem child, it was called tomboy. They had all kinds of names for me that weren't very supportive. And they called me out as an unusual person and kind of a problematic person. Why are you so sensitive, right? When I heard the term empath or clairsentient, I went, what? That is me, right? But in the places where I learned it, they really were looking at it as a kind of a lesser, kind of a creepy skill. But I thought, well, wait a minute, I'm going to turn this, because this is my life's, experience, I'm going to turn this into something that has meaning and value, because understanding emotions is possibly the most important thing you could ever do in your entire life, right? Understanding your own emotions and how to work with them, understanding the emotions of others and how to engage with them, oh my word. Forget math, forget seeing the future, forget hearing voices. If you can figure out emotions, you're gonna have it made, friend. So that was the beginning of my career, is trying to sort of salvage this lowly, kind of sad picture of what an empath was and turn it into a thing. So I think I'm the proto-empath. Now, the term empath comes from Star Trek, the original Star Trek series with Captain Kirk and Spock and McCoy. And the empath was a person who didn't speak, but who could feel intensely. And then one of her skills was that she could touch a person's body and pull all of their pain and all of their injury into her body, place it on her body and then heal it. So she was this amazing healer, and that's what an empath was. And I thought, well, I'm not doing that. Okay. But that was kind of where the word came from. It came from Star Trek. And then in the later Star Trek, the one with Jean-Luc Picard, Marina Sirtis played a half Betazoid empath, Counselor Deanna Troi. So the empath sort of came through Star Trek, right? So really the proto-empath is from Star Trek, but I think I'm the proto-empath who sort of gathered this term and brought it into the world as a thing you could be that wasn't sad. Okay. Now, by 2003, I had figured out that being an empath was not a psychic skill. Empathy was not a psychic skill. There's nothing psychic about it. But I understand why we thought that. Because if you can read emotion, which most people don't want to talk about, then you are looking at this sort of rich undergrowth of human nature. And if you can learn to identify emotion and figure out how it works and what people are feeling and that sort of thing, you can call people people's attention to things that they may think no one could see. Where, with other hyper empaths in the room, we'd just be leaning into each other and going, "You saw that? Yes, I did." Ha! He doesn't know that we saw it. Right? So in a world where emotional skills are looked down upon, in the same way empaths were looked down upon, right, in the metaphysical community where I came from, there's a richness in the world of emotions that if you can access them, you can look like you're a psychic, right? You can very much look like you're a psychic. So understanding, the empath term metaphysically, well, that's where I came from. I grew up in a metaphysical cult, basically, and so that was my frame of reference. But as I began working more with it, I had these tremendous, I don't think this is psychic, and I eventually left the metaphysical and paranormal world completely, ended my career, and went back to school. I came back and rewrote my book on emotions. It's now called Language of Emotions. And then after that, realized people would ask me, "Carla, now that I know how to work with my emotions, I know how to talk to them, how to manage them, I know how to understand them, I understand their gifts and skills, I understand they're an essential part of my intelligence, great, but how in the world do I talk to other people?" And that's sort of the birth of my book, The Art of Empathy, which is how do you then take that out and engage with others? So the Art of Empathy sets out to say, one, if you think empathy is a psychic skill, I understand it, but it's not. I understand why you would think that, because I thought that, but it's not. It can't be. And if you are calling empathy a psychic skill, or if you're calling an empath a psychic, I think that's very dangerous, because what it does is it takes a normal human emotional capacity, a normal human sensitivity, and turns it into a magical psychic skill, which means that only magical people can access it. And as an empath, I have to say, oh, heck no. You want to have as much empathy in this world as possible. You want to have skilled and aware and intentional empaths everywhere so that people can be comfortable and successful and skilled in their lives, right? So calling it a psychic skill, I think, is probably one of the worst things you could do. And I know that because I did it and it was a terrible thing, which is why I ended my career, right? And came back without that ideology anymore and studied and researched and questioned, right? And figured out how I could have been so wrong, right? It was wrong. So empathy is a normal skill. It is a skill that we share with many animals. It is a skill that develops in very young children, usually before the age of 2. So it's not something you work on. It's a part of your brain development. It's a part of your social development. It's a part of your emotional development. So what is an empath? You are. I am. The dog is. A horse is. A baby is. That person over there is. This lady here. Every single one of us is an empath because empathy is a normal human skill. It is not magical and special. And even if you're a hyper empath like me, which if you don't get a hold of it is going to be a pretty terrible thing to be because it's painful, right? But even as the proto-empath, hyper empath, whatever, my empathy is no more special than yours is. Empathy is something that all humans have, including men, boys, autistic people, and people who have been diagnosed with sociopathy or psychopathy or any of the personality disorders, right? Everyone has empathy. And understanding empathy with the 6 aspects model I've created will help you see, oh yeah, you have really good emotion contagion, but you could use some emotion regulation. Or your perspective taking is awesome. Or your concern for others is awesome, but it might be too high. And you might need to pull it down a little bit and take care of yourself and then come back, right? Understanding empathy, the nuts and bolts of it, is incredibly important. And if you have heard that empathy is a psychic skill and that an empath is a special magic form of person, I don't know. I'm thinking that came from me, the Proto-Empath, and Star Trek, okay? But I can't say this more strongly. Empathy is a normal human skill. You are an empath. There's nothing you need to do to become an empath. You are an empath. Everybody is. If there's anything I can do to fix the problems I created, besides writing this book and the other book and blah, 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 it is just to let you know that empathy is a normal human skill. And if someone calls you an empath, they'll say, yeah, so are you. We all are. What is an empath? It's a person. It's a horse. It's a dog. It's a baby. It's a cat. It's a primate. An empath is anyone who can identify emotions and engage with people or things or ideas or animals. An empath is everybody. The Proto-Empath says, you are now an empath. Ding! Go out and play. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.